First, I'd like you to introduce yourself, tell us about the film that you're representing, and we'll have a little discussion.
Hello everybody. So my name is Jackie Moore. I worked on Final Finishers, which is an American film that you see. I'm a producer and came up with the concept of the film and saw it through from start to finish, including overseeing all of the casting of the film as well.
Definitely. Is the mic on?
No.
Yeah, I think the mics are not very loud. Yeah.
I can use my outdoor voice. I'm here representing my younger and better-looking brother, Anthony Reed, who's in Dallas, who did the Marilyn Bevins film that you just saw.
Okay, so first, let's talk a little bit about aging while we're athletes, because there's a lot of individuals who are in that same category who want to continue to exercise and run because it's most important as we get older. Talk to us a little bit about when you started getting into the running field.
So when I was younger, I used to sprint. This was back in the UK in the 80s, and I kept twisting my ankle. And so the doctors then told my mother that I had to stop running, because if I didn't stop running and I twisted my ankle again, I might never walk again. So that stopped me from running. Then years later, I moved to New York and had a trainer who told me before I moved to New York that he thought I'd be able to run the New York City Marathon. And at that time, I was not a runner at all. That had been something that I'd abandoned when I was a young girl. And so there I found myself in New York. The first year the New York City Marathon happened, when I lived there, I went out in the morning for brunch and then came back in the afternoon and saw that people were still running and just could not believe that people were still out running after I'd been out. I had a lovely time at Balthazar in brunch. And so I stopped what I was doing and went to cheer them on at the finish. And I say this with any marathon, it's very hard for you to watch a marathon and then not want to run one, especially in the later waves. And so then I realised I'd made a promise to my coach back in England that I would run a marathon. And usually when I make a promise, I do see it through. And so it was grating on me that I said I'd do something that I wasn't doing. And so the next year, in my early 40s, I ran my first ever marathon, having never ran even a 5K.
Early 40s, first marathon.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Mr. Bevins?
I run vicariously. My brother Tony is the first black man or woman that's run marathons on all 7 continents, all 50 states, and has a lifetime of 130 plus marathons. So I get to watch him run, which is a good thing. I'm a cyclist. And he has recently he's losing the cartilage in his knees. So he had to take off running for about a year. But it's been interesting watching him transition out of running into cycling, just my passion, and swimming. He's decided he can get back running sometime in September and plans to run another marathon sometime in December.
Good. Now, back to films just a little bit. Most films want to talk about the winners and how the top finishers have come into race, just like yours did. But when we're concentrating on the last individuals who come through, what made you get that idea to get that done?
So my thing is about, and I think somebody said it in the film, that they've run a marathon, but they still don't see themselves as a runner. So I unfortunately had an auntie who died probably way before she should have, and so that started getting me to think about our lifestyles and longevity, obviously, in the black community. And again, just going back to, I grew up in the UK, we were pushed into, if you were black, you were pushed into sprinting. So middle distance running and long distance running wasn't a thing that we were pushed into. So as sprinters, you know, you age out of that, even if you don't get injured as I did as a kid. So you age out of that. And I was just very aware that this running scene just wasn't really diverse, other than obviously the elites from Kenya, Ethiopia and Kenya. But beyond that, you know, you'd see these waves and waves of people, and you wouldn't really see that much diversity. And then obviously, you know, in our community, because of our diet, we have problems with diabetes, high blood pressure, strokes run big in my family. So for me, it was important to get out there and continue to run and show that we can actually do distance, and that we're actually good at it as well. So in order to tell the stories of the people at the back of the marathon, there's still a lot of elitism in the running community, and they're not pros. If you're pros, then you're paid to come and, you know, show up and race. And so for me, it was about really changing that narrative and making everybody in this room is capable of running a marathon, right? So you might not think it, but I hope the film makes people realise that there isn't a definition of what a runner is. Running is something that we are all born to do. So it doesn't matter what your age is, what your race is, what you look like, what your weight is, you can run a marathon. And that was important to show. I know how many things I've gained from being a runner in terms of going back to the other films and how important community is with longevity. I moved to New York 15 years ago and didn't know anybody. And you know, every weekend I always think about how rich my life is because of this deep network that I've built, and it's all through running. So yeah, it's important for me.
So just take me through a small synopsis on the aging population right now. If you wanted to start a running program, what are some of the first things we should get into?
I mean, I'm obviously not a run coach, but for me, first of all, just make sure that you've checked in with your doctor that there's no reason why you shouldn't be doing it. So if you've got like a heart condition, but that still doesn't preclude you. It's step by step. That's what I say, step by step. Like I know people who are like, I'm going to run a marathon or I'm going to do a 5K, and then all of a sudden, having been quite sedentary, they will then run every single day. Like that's not good. It's complementary training, so maybe go on the bike or you know, get in the pool. Just start slowly, and before you know it, you will build up. But again, you know, first thing, just make sure that if you've got any pre-existing health conditions, just make sure that you are medically cleared to run. But, you know, one of the big programs is the run Couch to 5K.
Yes.
I mean, I didn't do that, but I hear a lot of people have a lot of success with that, and that just teaches people to run 1 minute, walk 1 minute, run 1 minute, and then they start building up those intervals. I have a very good friend who, she ran her first marathon last year, and she started by doing the Coach to 5K. She ran her first marathon age 50. So it's possible, everything's possible.
Talk to us about cycling.
I would add stretching.
Stretching.
The strength training as well, it's really important.
Take your time to stretch and stretch well. And also, don't be afraid to take the time to recuperate. Oftentimes, we think we're back to where we thought we were, but our brain and our bodies are not fully in sync. But I found that stretching and like calisthenics
We're going to throw this out to the audience in a few minutes, but I had another couple of questions I wanted to get out, because we saw that Mr. Martinez in your film was a gentleman who was a little obese and had the opportunity to run, and he said that he started running for 15 seconds.
I love the treadmill.
And fell off the treadmill. How long did it take him to get to the 9-mile marathon that he did? Because I didn't catch that.
So I think the 9-mile run he was doing would have been a training run. So I don't know exactly, because he's done probably 9 or 10 marathons now. But I suspect with Martinez, because he set his mind to doing a marathon, he followed a specific training program.
Yes.
So the reality is marathon training programs are usually 16 to 18 weeks. So for me, I did my first marathon, I did an 18-week training program. So I say it took me 18 weeks to become a marathon. That was it. From that's all it took, from beginning to end.
To
Yeah.
26
And, yeah, and I kind of lied when I signed up for the training group, because the training group, you had to make a disclaimer that you were running 5Ks 2 or 3 times a week. I wasn't. I was doing one 5K lower loop of Central Park a week, and so then all of a sudden I'm on a marathon training program and we're running 3 times a week. And I looked at, they give you the schedule ahead, and I looked at the schedule and I was like, we're supposed to be running 14 miles in 6 weeks' time. And I just could not believe that you would even have to do that in training, and said, I'm actually just not going to do that, because if I understand how far 26 miles is, I'm not going to do the marathon. It needs to be a surprise to me. And then just by staying with the program, like it was, career-wise, it was a tough time at that time. I was really struggling to re-establish myself in my career. So that was a struggle, but every single week, I was having these major breakthroughs, because every Saturday I'd come home and say, I just ran further than I've ever ran in my life. And that was in your early 40s, right? And most people are like, you know, when you get to 40, it's all downhill. No, it's not. Like, I had the best time ever, and even more so now I'm in my 50s. So it just gets better from here.
Very good. Anything to add?
Well, I really want to appreciate the fact that we need to know our history as part of the running community.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things my brother has chronicled are early Black American runners. He was at the starting line at a marathon once, and some white guy looked at him and said, you should be a sprinter. And my brother thought to himself, he said, you know, Dick Gregory ran across the United States from LA to New York. And that's my model. And you know, if you don't know your history, you can't draw from it in terms of the strength.
Wow. Well, that's great.
I want to add to that actually, because this year I came up for the Boston Marathon, and Marilyn Bevans was on my train in the carriage, and I was starstruck. And as you can imagine, everybody else in the carriage, they didn't look like us. And so as I got up, I went over and I said, are you Marilyn Bevans? And she was like, yes, yes. And then all of a sudden, and I'm like, I'm so honoured to meet you. And then everybody started looking at me, maybe because of the accent, they didn't expect that. And then they were like, well, who is she? Who is she? And then so I said, do you know this is the first Black woman to win a marathon? And then all of a sudden everyone was like, oh, no, her name is Marilyn Bevans. And it was, so yeah, it's like the history, and it's important the work that's being done, because it's like going back to the Sistas film, right? There's a reason why we are discouraged from doing certain sports, and it's because it's the same happens in gymnastics. Once we get in, we will dominate. We will dominate.
As an older athlete myself, I can definitely understand and respect what you have been put up to, and thank you very much for coming out and talking. I'd like to throw it to the audience. if there's any one question, appreciate it.
I was just wondering, how did you select your participants, your runners, your finishers? And then for you, is there a documentary possibly or something about your brother? Because for him to have participated in seven continents, running as a marathon, as an African-American man, I did the Boston Marathon, and I know it is lonely out there sometimes. It feels like you're the only one. This representation is so great and what you all are showcasing. So those are my questions.
Yes, no, there's not a documentary about my brother. He's done 3 other documentaries about distance runners, about Black distance runners. He was also the star of the first wave of this year's Boston Marathon. But no, he's
Well, maybe you
not
can
yet.
think about it. Maybe you can think about it and
Yeah.
have something about that.
And your first question was?
How did you find your participants?
So this is a dying art. This is me showing my age now and generational. It's actually deep research. Obviously, the results of all the New York City Marathon is public information. They're all out there. So I made a determination that a final finisher, by the definition for the film, because you have to, there's 50,000 people a year running that marathon. Final finishers, I was like, anyone who finished after 8 hours. So then I just trawled the results for anyone finishing after 8 hours. Then being aware of what demographics in terms of what we knew this was something that we wanted to sell to a network. It's currently on ESPN+, so just really making sure that there was an age that everybody could relate to. That was important. And in terms of the diversity of casting, so not just reinforcing one stereotype that everybody is overweight that finishes after that time, or everybody has a disability, or any of that. Like for me, someone like Hannah was really important. Because if you Google Hannah, we made a deliberate choice not to tell her story in terms of why she's disabled, because that would override everything in the film, and that's the only thing she would be defined by. But to just show her just living her best life, despite the fact that she has a disability from trauma, that was really important to me. But yeah, it was just doing really deep research. It was very laborious and time-consuming, and then looking at what archive we had, because the finish line is obviously always filmed, so we were looking at that archive existed to support their stories, and plus they document their own journeys. I was looking at their social to see who actually documents their journey on social media, because I knew that footage would be useful for us in the film. So it was just really old school filmmaking, which is a dying art, and it drives me crazy.
Okay, so I really want to thank you both for coming up and talking and sharing your experiences with the audience. Let's get a round of applause.